Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're setting up the ultimate scientific teardown between the two undeniable titans of the classic psychedelic world. We're talking the mushroom versus the blotter, psilocybin versus LSD. We're going to strip away all the myths, look directly at the neurobiology, and figure out exactly what separates these two inside the human brain. Now, if you were to ask a room full of people how these two substances differ, you'd get some pretty confident answers, right? You'd probably hear the widely accepted folklore that LSD is this electric, highly cerebral marathon, while psilocybin is a warmer, more emotional, kind of earthy journey. People are absolutely sure these are completely different animals. But are they really? Okay, let's dive into this. Because while, sure, some of those subjective vibes are widely reported, most of that folklore absolutely dissolves the very moment you put these two molecules under rigorous, controlled clinical conditions. Let's actually look at the hard data. To really understand them, we have to start with what unites them. And honestly, it's far bigger than what divides them. Under the hood, both of these compounds run on the exact same engine. It's the 5-HT2A serotonin receptor. Whether it's LSD or psilocin, which, by the way, is the active molecule your body actually converts psilocybin into, they both unlock the exact same door in your cortex. In fact, if you medically block this specific receptor, you completely abolish the psychedelic trip for both of them. Zero effect. But let's look at their pharmacological profiles on a structural level. LSD is what scientists actually call promiscuous. I know. Great word for it. Beyond that core 5-HT2A receptor, it also heavily hits dopamine receptors, specifically D1 through D3, as well as adrenergic targets. This broad, scattershot receptor profile is highly likely what colors LSD's slightly more energetic, stimulating, or, electric character. Psilocin, on the other hand, is comparatively much more serotonin-focused and selective. But here is where the biology gets truly elegant. When LSD binds to that 5-HT2A receptor, it dissociates extraordinarily slowly. Why? Well, because a part of the receptor literally folds a structural lid over the LSD molecule. It's a kinetic trap. Because of this lid, LSD has an ultra-long residence time. We're talking about 221 minutes locked inside the receptor. This tiny little trap is literally the secret to LSD's legendary endurance. And because of that incredible, tiny structural trap, LSD is roughly 100 times more potent by mass than psilocybin. Just think about that. 100 times. It binds with such high affinity and stays locked on for so long that you need significantly less of the physical substance to induce a profound state. This creates a massive micro to milli difference. Because of that kinetic trap, LSD is dosed in tiny micrograms, typically just 100 to 200 micrograms. Meanwhile, psilocybin clears faster and requires milligram doses, usually somewhere between 15 and 30 milligrams. This micro to milli difference pharmacologically proves just how unbelievably powerful that tiny receptor lid really is. The basal crossover study, controlled reality. So you might be wondering, if the pharmacology is so similar at its core, how on earth do we explain the radically different experiences people report? Well, researchers at the definitive Halsey and Liechty double-blind crossover study out of Basel wanted to find out. They tracked the duration of an average LSD session and clocked the subjective effects lasting an incredibly long 9.3 hours on average. I mean, that is a massive chunk of your day. Now, contrast that directly with the psilocybin timeline. That topped out at a significantly shorter 5.6 to 6.5 hours. By mapping these out side by side, the researchers definitively established that time, this roughly 3 to 4 hour gap, is the one truly robust, reliable difference between the two substances. So here is the absolutely crucial point. The headline finding of the basal crossover study was disarmingly simple. Once you scientifically match them for dose intensity and account for that difference in duration, the fundamental quality of the two altered states barely differs at all. That folk intuition, the idea that these are fundamentally different kinds of experiences, it turns out it's mostly wrong. And when you look at the brain scans, both molecules produce a nearly identical signature. They both rapidly reduce the integrity of the default mode network, basically flattening the brain's usual hierarchical control and inducing what we call ego dissolution. At the exact same time, they both massively raise neural entropy and boost cross-network connectivity. It's the exact same signature of an entropic brain. And this shared signature builds directly into their lasting therapeutic effects, which brilliantly illustrates why both are drawing such intense clinical interest right now. Because they share that 5-HT2A pathway, both drive rapid structural neuroplasticity, We're talking about stimulating the growth of new dendritic spines in the cortex within just 24 hours. They are quite literally rewiring the brain via the exact same molecular route, which is the leading candidate mechanism for their long-term therapeutic effects. The 2026 clinical frontrunner. This brings us to the present day. With all this shared neuroscience, how is the race to actual clinical approval playing out? Let's impartially analyze where these two substances stand right now in the medical and legal landscape heading into 2026. First off, looking at the clinical trials, psilocybin is definitively the frontrunner. Compass Pathways COMP360 has already hit its primary endpoints in 2 positive phase 3 depression trials. LSD trails just slightly behind. MindMed's MM120 is currently in phase 3 for anxiety and depression. Second, regarding state access, there's regulated adult access for psilocybin in places like Oregon and Colorado, whereas LSD currently has 0 state legal access. Finally, at the federal level, both remain Schedule I substances. But practically speaking, psilocybin's shorter duration just makes it much more scalable and manageable for supervised in-clinic dosing. Now, when it comes to safety, both have remarkably low physiological toxicity and very wide safety margins. The real risks here are psychological, specifically navigating a difficult trip. And this is exactly why duration matters so much in a clinical setting. LSD's 9 to 12-hour marathon simply creates a much longer window of time for a difficult psychological experience to unfold. Psilocybin's shorter arc, on the other hand, is just much easier for clinicians to monitor and manage. The folklore focuses on which molecule is more electric or more emotional, but the neuroscience tells us they are far more alike than we ever imagined. Ultimately, the interesting question is not which is stronger, but how long do you want the door to stay open? Which leaves us with one final thought to ponder. If science shows us that a mushroom and a chemical compound take us to the exact same destination, what else about human consciousness are we completely misjudging based on simple folklore?